there, gang, and welcome back, frickin' finally. I tested out the mic, so we're not gonna have a Lego Batman situation where I record an hour of audio, and there's nothing there, so I think we'll be okay. This has been a very busy month for me. I'm not gonna go into all the details. I've gone into a little bit of the situation, but there were just so many little factors over and over, and it's not all out of the way, but while there's a pause, and I'm remotely happy, I'm going to be productive. So here we are again. So I'm not going to mince words. So basically I've done 2 lists throughout my YouTube history. I did like a Batman movie ranking 2 years ago or something on my player display channel, link in the description. That was not a great video. Didn't even have this mic, didn't even have my face on the screen. So that one's quite old. And later on this channel, I did a Superman movie ranking, and I think that was in not anticipation. I think it was just after I watched Superman 2025, so it's pretty recent. But then I had the fun idea of putting all the Batman and Superman movies together just to see where they line up on a traditional style tier list. I thought it'd be kind of fun, and I also ranked them all in order of release date, so it'll be kind of interesting to see like when one hero takes a hiatus and then another one like goes up into the spotlight for a while, or the bat signal, whatever you want to call it. So that would be pretty cool to do. And also, I just saw one movie that I have not seen before for the first time in recent weeks, so I figured, oh, I got those thoughts fresh in my little head, we'll go ahead and do it. So, and last thing, this obviously isn't every Batman and Superman movie. That I know there's a whole animated universe, but unfortunately they're a little bit before my time, so I haven't seen them all, and also they're usually behind a paywall, so I have just never really gotten to them. However, I did allow for the Lego Batman movie because that's more mainstream, theatrically released. People know that movie pretty well. Another thing I should mention is I haven't rewatched every single movie in recent weeks to do this list. I mean, some of these are years old, decades old, so they're kind of common knowledge by this point. I don't feel the need to watch them all for a stupid little list, right? It's not a big deal. And lastly, I also included live-action movies where the character is in the background, like a side character, or maybe they're just reduced to a cameo. I thought that would just be a little more fun, and also we have a nice, even rectangle of movies down there, and I kind of like that. It makes me satisfied. And I'm also including 2 director's cuts, so that's going to include the Superman 2 Donner cut, and also Zack Snyder's Justice League, so we'll be talking about those as well. So anyways, let's get into it. So the first 2 movies we have here, they can kind of be talked about in the same breath. I mean, I'll talk about them separate, but they both came after there were 2 serials for each of their respective characters. So for Superman, we had 2 serials with Kirk Allen, I believe. And for Batman, we had 2 other ones for 2 other actors. There was like Lowry and some other dude. I really don't remember. I haven't seen the Kirk Allen stuff. I haven't seen the other 2 former Batman things that occurred before Batman 66. So we won't be just talking about them today. That being said, the one I will be talking about is Superman and the Mole Men. I actually have all the years for all these movies here on some sticky notes. Mole Men was done in 1951, so that's the oldest movie that we'll be discussing. And I just watched this yesterday. I actually got a holiday gift from my mom a little later, holiday gift of the 4 Batman Christopher Reeve movies on Blu-ray, and on the first movie it comes with Superman and the Mole Man as a special feature. And this is a movie I've seen before, so I've seen it twice now, maybe 3 times, and it's an interesting one. It's very, very different from all the other movies on this list in that it's less of a superhero movie that we'd commonly expect where something bad happens, superhero shows up and they save the day and all of that. This one's more of like a pensive detective story, kind of mixed with the Universal monsters, also a little bit of film noir. It's very different when it comes to pacing. So, depending on your mileage, this might be a movie that you just do not have the patience for. But for me, I'm a huge George Reeves guy. He's my second favorite Superman, absolutely. So anytime I'm able to see the guy, I'm very happy, except for the Flash movie. We'll talk about that. So this movie's interesting. I won't spoil it completely. Actually, I'm going to go through all these a little quick because we have talked about all of them before. This one's interesting because it's only an hour long. And for like the first half, Superman is nowhere. He's merely talked about. You just have Clark Kent kind of almost doing like a detective thing with like Lois Lane and a few other characters trying to figure out that there are these little creatures roaming around and they don't know what they are. And it's just him trying to pull together all the information on who these are, who these things are they actually dangerous, why are they here, where do they come from, and then Superman finally shows up when there's like a mob that starts raging against these mole men. And then, of course, Superman protects them, shoves off the mob, and then ultimately well, I won't spoil the ending of the movie, but one thing that makes this film really interesting, I think its greatest strength, is that the villain isn't like a mastermind, it isn't an intergalactic threat. Rather, it's the very people that Superman is trying to protect. The villain is just an angry mob of citizens in Metropolis that are trying to destroy the Mole Men, and of course Superman is trying to hold them back. So that's as far as I'll go on this one, but it is definitely worth the watch for people who have never touched this before, who don't know George Reeves. Even for me, I did not grow up with the show, but the few times I have seen George Reeves, I've really loved him. Not a movie, but it's also worth mentioning, there is a single episode of the George Reeves Superman, Adventures of Superman in this case, called Stamp Day, and you can find that on YouTube at any time, because that episode was donated to the National Treasury, so anyone can upload it, very easy to find. I'm sorry, let me mute my phone really quickly. I forgot to do that before I started, but yeah, anyways, I do really like this movie, but at the same time, it doesn't quite hold the candle to the greats of this list, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop it. I forgot to discuss the tiers, I'm sorry about that, I went into this really fast. I'll plop this into the Vengeance tier. Now, let me explain the tiers so they make some degree of sense. So S tier is super. I mean, to have like a universal thing that unites Batman and Superman, both of them are superheroes, right? So my favorite movies are going to be all the way up here. And again, we're doing subjective lists here because objective lists are very boring. Next up, we have an A tier, The Locomotive. Really awesome movie, but doesn't quite have that punch to be faster than more powerful than a locomotive, right? That's where we get a super tier movie. Then B, we have Vengeance, something that's really awesome, good movie, but doesn't quite have the gumption to be alongside the best of the best. But it's still good. It's still a good time. C tier, we have The Shark Repellent Bat Spray. One of those cases of like, I'd rather not need it and have it as opposed to need it and not have it, right? Like, it's a film, it's fun to watch, it's good, like, I'll watch it, like, if I'm just trying to go on a completionist run, but otherwise, nothing wrong with it, no strong feelings either way. Then D tier, we get to Granny's Peach Tea, where, you're kind of like, okay, alright, let's give this a try, and you're kind of like, I enjoyed the prospect, but the product itself, not particularly great. Maybe I'll leave a pretty bad review on Yelp. And then F, we have The Phantom Zone. Absolutely awful. There's nothing I like about this film whatsoever. There's not going to be a whole lot of movies down here. I'm going to be kind of lenient. But, like, put it this way. If there's a film and I don't like it for myself, but I can at least see why other people like it, then I would push it a little bit up, depending on what credibility it has. But yeah, anyways, those are the tiers. Let's keep going. Interestingly, Superman and the Mole Man and Batman 66 are each meant to coincide with a more well-known TV show. So that takes us to Batman 66 with, of course, Adam West, for a lot of people being their first Batman, and it's such a great time. And this movie isn't anything particularly special. It's more so just a glorified, stretched out, I'd say like 2 episodes of the show slammed together, but what does make it fun is that all the core villains are there at the same time, so that is very enjoyable. As for the plot, it's very low stakes. I mean, Batman always wins, pretty much. I do have the box set of the entire show, but I've never finished it because it's so long, but basically, it's kind of the rhythm of, one episode that starts an arc, then Batman and Robin are in peril at the very end, and it's like, we'll come back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, that's where that comes from. The next episode, they solve it, they get themselves out of there, and then they put the bad guy in jail. And then rinse and repeat. But in this one, it's more open and shut, so that's nice. If you just want a very quick idea of what the Adam West Batman experience is like, Burt Ward Robin and all of that, then this is a good avenue to go. It's just a nice demo for what the rest of the show has to offer, although you don't get Batgirl, unfortunately. But that being said, I mean, you got Cesar Romero Joker, you've got We've got the Penguin. I don't know why his name always escapes me. From Rocky, right? I'm sorry. I should remember that. I don't know why it's eluding me right now. And then I think you have the second Catwoman. It's not Julie Newmar, unfortunately, which blows, because she's maybe my favorite Catwoman. Hard to say either her or Pfeiffer. But yeah, a lot of mainstay character actors in this movie, and also a whole bunch of running gags. You got the bomb, you got the shark repellent bat spray, all the good stuff's in there. And where would I put this here? I would argue Superman and the Mole Men does definitely have more narrative depth than Batman 66, whereas Batman 66 is just 2 episodes of the show stretched out, but they're not done differently. They're just a little bit bigger, maybe the production value's a touch higher, but otherwise it's just more episodes, and so it's fine, totally fine, nothing wrong with it. Fittingly, I'm going to put it in C tier with shark repellent bat spray. Makes sense. Superman 78's an S tier. We know that. Let's drive it all the way up there. This is like a modern theatrical poster. It's not the original poster from the time. But again, that's interesting why I wrote down all the dates. It's so interesting to see how there's such a massive hiatus for some of these franchises. Like, we have Batman 66, and then like 12 years later, we get Superman 78. But that is decades after Mole Men happened. So that's kind of cool. I'm not going to point out every one of those nuances, but it's interesting to see how the years line up here. This is a golden movie for me, and one that's very important to me personally. I've talked about this a few times before, but in a breath. The day after I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, high-functioning Asperger's, whatever you want to call it. It has like a million freaking names, which they narrow that down. My dad decided to call me out of school sick so he could show me the Superman movie. And this was not the first time I saw the movie, but it was very, very helpful. The thing about this movie that is so special compared to everything else here is that it is just blind hope and goodness, which is what Superman's all about. And it's perfect for the time, and it's more important now, I'd argue, than it's ever been, because now we lean into an era where superhero comic book movies have to have this edge. They have to be introspective. They have to be gritty. And I feel like we really lost that, especially during the 2010s with like the DCEU, the Dark Knight movies and stuff like that, which are good. Again, they got their own credibility in different ways, and it's good that they exist for that perspective on the thing. That's good. But it wasn't until like Superman 2025 that I feel like what 78 brought to the table is kind of just lost. The spirit, the holisticness, the charm. I love basically everything about this movie. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, there are a few moments of the visual effects where you can see it's a little bit shaky, but where they land it on its feet just right, it holds up so well. I mean, I feel like there is something to be said about practical effects that outlive CGI. I mean, to bring in Superman Returns briefly, the Brandon Routh movie, again, we'll get to that later, it has some really awesome set pieces of like the plane and everything and the rockets and all of that, but the CGI is aged very poorly, very fast. As for the practical effects in Superman 78, they still work. They still are convincing. Like, yeah, you can go like, it's just a guy on strings, but it still looks really good, especially if you're watching it on Blu-ray, it looks even better. So, really my only weakness I'd consider with this movie, which I still kind of give a pass, is when he turns back timeshare style at the end. Yeah, then it's kind of a cop-out, and you're like, well, why didn't he do that at the beginning, you know? But this movie isn't really about being a tight story, even though it is a pretty tight story. It's just about the scale, the grandiose, the myth. We don't have to ask those questions. We got a super being who does super things, and we love him for that. Just a guy who wants to do good. And there's not much more complexity than that, aside from, the typical with great power comes great responsibility that it kind of leans into a little bit, but not too much. And again, that's fine. We get movies later on that talk about that more in depth, but it is wonderful. I mean, you got Christopher Reeve, best Superman of all time, absolutely, for me at least, and for most of the world. Margot Kidder, I say she's the best Lois Lane, and I would say Gene Hackman is the best Lex Luthor. And then you also have the best Zor-El, then you have the best Zod, who basically cameos here, but then he shows up in 2 that we're just about to talk about. Beautiful movie. Nothing else here is going to go above Superman 78. I know it's a spoiler, but it's not going to be the only S tier, if that makes you feel a little better. But anyways, Superman 2. This one, 1980. My favorite decade that I never lived through. But Superman 2 is an interesting one because there are 2 versions of this movie. There was a Donner cut that released, we're not going to talk about that for a little while, in 2006, same year as Superman Returns. Makes sense. And I'd argue that the Donner cut is superior, even though it does have a few shaky scenes from like test footage and stuff. So it's a stronger story overall. But that being said, I think both do have their strengths and weaknesses. But I do think Superman 2, the original from 80, is just a little bit weaker. And that's really because, I guess, the superpowers he gets are just a little bit too wacky, where he like throws a shield and it becomes a trap and stuff like that. He also have the really jarring visual effect of when he loses his powers, you like see a skeleton in there, and it's just a little bit morbid for this particular franchise. Not that I have an issue with morbidity, but if it is in a movie where it's not really streamlined, it's not part of the tone, that just feels jarring, and it takes you out of it for a minute there, right? It might make a few kids cry, which is fine. I don't care if kids cry, but it does take you out a little bit. But otherwise, it's mostly the same plot beats, but they're a little bit better done in the Donner cut. So as for this movie, nothing really wrong with it. So I'll give it shark repellent bat spray. I allow it to exist. I think it's fun. There's nothing bad about it, but I would put it above Batman 66, because again, that's just 2 televised episodes put together in a theatrical format. And also Superman 2, I believe, introduces that power of him using the mind-wiping kiss, which always felt weird to me. Like, there's a point in the Christopher Reeve franchise where it goes from, I can allow for these wacky powers to exist, it's fun, to, alright, this is going too far, and then eventually to, alright, it's so stupid, it's hilarious at this point. We'll get to that. But firstly, we have Superman 3. Now, let me try and phrase this right. Superman 3 came out in 83, fittingly 3 years after Superman 2. This is not the worst Christopher Reeve Superman movie. It's definitely not the worst Superman movie, but I think it's my least favorite Superman movie. For a variety of reasons, but simply on the fact that Superman's not the main character. He's shoehorned aside, so we have Richard Pryor as this main character, is kind of just this bumbling tech dude or something. Like, that's the thing, I've seen this movie multiple times, and for the life of me, I can never freaking remember it, because it's so boring. It's less of a movie where, like, you plug it in, like, yeah, more Superman time. It's more like, where's Superman? I don't care about this guy. I don't care about this computer, like, budget Terminator villain. Where's Superman? Where is he? Oh, here he is. He's on a farm dating a chick that was barely seen in Superman 1, and Lois Lane is nowhere to be found. Wait, why is Richard Pryor back? Like, this movie is just... It just makes me fuming. It just makes me mad almost all the way through. I have very little to say about it, except there is one good scene. One single good moment in the scene, which again, very kooky when it comes to the limitations of Superman's powers, where he gets infected by like a synthetic kryptonite, and it makes him drunk, it makes him do all the bad stuff. It's almost like Spider-Man 3, where instead of the symbiote suit that makes him do all the bad stuff, it's bad kryptonite, I guess, alright. But what makes this interesting is that we get like, a brooding and angry and frustrated Superman, and then he has to duke it out against a vision of Clark Kent or something. Again, it's odd, but again, I like it for the spirit here, not the reality. And Clark Kent is able to prevail against Dark Superman, and I like that thematically. This is where you get a pretty on-the-nose version of a superhero realizing that their inherent desires and their ability to take over the world at any given moment is superseded by their morals and their ethics and their inherent goodness. Great moment in an otherwise baffling movie. I'm gonna drop this into Granny's PhD. Again, it's like a movie where you watch it like, ugh, bleh, that's weird, but you're like, Alright, well, at least enjoy that idea of it. The name Granny's Peach Tea sounds nice, but then you watch the movie, you're like, oh, woof, awful. Not to say anything about BVS, we're getting to that later, but you know what I mean. Now, when I started this list, I said one of the reasons why I wanted to put it together is because there's one movie here that I have not seen for the longest time, and finally I got to see it because of that Blu-ray box set that my mom gave me. And that movie was the infamous Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, heralded as perhaps the singular worst superhero movie ever made. I visited my parents this past weekend, where I got the box set, and I'm like, we already know the other 3, let's watch 4 and just see where the hell this goes. We were laughing so hard throughout the whole thing, and we are diehards for Superman 78, but this movie was so perfectly hilarious and terrible. Now, here's another rule I have for myself. If you're gonna make a bad movie, at least don't make it boring. Superman 3, you could argue, is better put together. It's better directed and acted, fine, but it is so boring. Superman 4 is so funny. I love Superman 4. And if a movie can make me laugh, it doesn't matter how bad it is, subjectively, that will make me put it higher on any tier list, alright? So this is going to be higher than Superman 3. As for Superman 4, oh my god. I mean, first of all, the directing is hideous, and that's what makes it so funny. This could be an easy drinking game if you just look for that one shot of Superman, like, soaring straight into the camera. They recycle that shot, I think, well over 10 times. And every time you see it, like, hey, here he comes again, hey, it's so stupid. It's like The Room caliber of garbage, and it's hilarious for that. And then you also have this whole side plot of, like, you got this Lacey character who doesn't need to be there at all. But then again, it leads to some amusing shenanigans of Superman, like, trying to date Lacey as Superman, but also trying to date Lois as Clark. So he's doing all this flip-flopping, which was kind of funny. But then the guy just flies away to save the day. And then that whole plot just gets dropped. So even when something goes, like, just categorically wrong in the plot, you can't help but laugh because it's so nuts. And another scene I gotta say, and that's the great thing about Christopher Reeve, even in the bad movies, he's so good. In this movie, he still manages to be so funny as Clark Kent. Like, there's one scene where he's doing, like a Zumba thing, like an aerobics class. I think it was with Lacey, if I'm remembering. Yeah, it was with the Lacey character. He's, like, trying to do the lifts and the like touching his toes and stuff, and he's so far behind everyone. He still nails the slapstick as Clark Kent. So actually, that's the strongest objective point of this movie. His Clark Kent continues to be a bumbling idiot, and he's delightful. But the crown jewel of this spectacle is Nuclear Man. Oh my god. It's just Thundercat or something. It's like a deleted character from a 1980s music video, but turned into a supervillain with the worst dialogue I think I've heard from any character in any movie ever. Because at least Tommy Wiseau is trying to string together a narrative threadline, right? No, there's like not even an attempt at complexity with Nuclear Man. I can't even understand if this movie was meant to be funny or not. Because we also had the deleted scenes, and they were even more egregious. But again, we have so many other movies to get through, but I'll leave it at this. If you ever get the Blu-ray of Superman 4, please watch the deleted scenes. Oh my god, it is so good. Where am I gonna put this? Okay, I couldn't in good conscience put it in Locomotive. I'll put it in Vengeance because it's such a fun time. I mean, Again, Vengeance is one of those things that can only get you so far. This movie's hilarious, but it can only get so far on that mileage alone. I will... Nah, I'm gonna put it below Mole Men. But it's so fun. It's so much more funny than the 3 movies below it. And the plot is totally broken, but it's such a good time. I would watch Superman 1, Donner Cut 2, skip 3, then watch 4, and then that's my trilogy. Right there, that's my Reeve trilogy. And that's totally fine. And again, here we are, Batman's back, after Adam West 66. It's such a long time. And we don't see Batman again until 78, another 12-year span. So, no, sorry, no. 89. 89. That is such a huge chasm. Yeah, so that's what, 22 years? 6, 7. No, 23 years. Sorry, I haven't done math in a while. Almost a quarter of a century until we'd see Batman again in 1989. And full stop, this is my favorite, like, consistent series of movies, right? Where you got Batman 89, Returns, Forever, and Batman and Robin. That's my favorite, like, microcosm of a collection of movies here in this whole thing. So I just wanted to mention that straight away. So Batman 89, it's not my favorite of all the movies here, and if you've known my content for a while, you know what my favorite Batman movie is, but I do love Batman 89 quite a lot. However, it's not the best Batman movie in that Batman's kind of just there, right? He apparates, and then slowly you start to learn about his origin and everything, and then he has these ties to the Joker, which I've never really cared for. Even as a kid, I thought that the Joker being responsible for killing his parents was a little far-fetched. Nothing wrong with it inherently, I just felt like, just the chances of that happening are so low, being that it's a city that's so wacky. You have the worst criminal who just so happens to kill the parents of who would become the greatest hero. I mean, I guess it's kind of the point, but I'm more prescribed to Batman's parents just being killed by a nobody. In the comics, it's Joe Chill. I've since preferred that. But that being said, it's still a very fun movie. You got Michael Keaton, of course, who, for me, is... I think he's objectively the best Batman, but though not my favorite. So Keaton takes the silver. We'll get to that. And then you have Jack Nicholson's Joker. I struggle with who my favorite Joker is, but he's definitely in top 3, somewhere there. And this movie is just a fun, whimsical movie. Just this introduction to a more modernized Gotham that now has that grit that the Adam West Gotham lacked, where it was more in the sun time, everything was very playful. And that was just because, that's when they were rolling out comic code. That's why Adam West Batman was so wacky. But now this is after the fact, and we're like, okay, let's just do an edgy, gritty Gotham with Batman and Joker for once. And then, of course, Tim Burton did a beautiful job with that. Not much else to say of this movie. It, lacks a certain complexity, I think, that it could have afforded to dip into more, as opposed to Superman 78. So there's a little bit of lost potential there. But I do really love this movie. Yeah, I'd put it in Locomotive. This is a big deal to me. Not quite super, because I feel like it could have dipped in a little harder into the themes it was discussing, being that it is a lot later on in this massive saga of films we're talking about, but it's still a ton of fun. I really do enjoy it. Batman Returns, this one came along in 92, so 3 years later. Pretty good span to think out a sequel. That being said, I think this movie is more narratively interesting in that we have 3 characters, where we have one who's definitely a hero, one who's kind of treading in between being Catwoman. They have Penguin, who is definitely the villain of this story. Or you could argue Max Schreck, maybe. I mean, it depends. He kind of enables Penguin, right? But the thing that threads all 3 characters together in that they are both characters with checkered pasts who adopt an animalistic persona. And it's interesting to see the poetry there, where Batman simply chooses to be a bat. Catwoman was kind of just brought back to life by the cat she loved, which again, a little wacky, comic-y magic there. I allow for that, that's fine. But Penguin is the only one who is an animal. I mean, he says that himself in this movie. And it's an interesting, case study of, how each of them navigate their lives and their relationship to the city and to each other, because they both chose a similar origin, but are going about their futures in very different ways. One's too far gone, one still has a chance, and one still continues to be the upright, noble guardian of the city. So that's really fascinating. But because of that, because we're exploring 3 arcs at once, and then a whole bunch of other side quests at the same time, this movie is just a little bit overstuffed. I wish it could surrender some of the long, kind of not needed dialogue about the politics and the economy, more the Max Schreck stuff, so we can focus a little more on these 3 core characters. And that's really all I gotta say on it. I mean, this movie is pretty much penultimate Batman. A lot of people say this is their absolute favorite Batman movie, and I totally agree with that. It's a good Batman film, and I just feel like it's lacking a little bit of something. So in terms of, do I prefer this over or under 89 or alongside it, I'm really not sure. You know, I'd put this also in Locomotive, but I don't think I would put it above 89. And here's why. I think Batman 89 does a better job at establishing its own concrete identity. But as for Batman Returns, I feel like it feels more like a Tim Burton movie than it does a Batman movie. Whether we're talking the score, the cityscape, the aesthetics, it leans a little too hard into Burton. Whereas 89, it was more of a beautiful harmony between the two. For Returns, I think it just leaned too hard into the director's preferences as opposed to maintaining the spirit of the source material. You could argue about that for hours, but for me personally, I just prefer 89 just a hair more, but I do love them both. But I prefer to watch 89. Next up, we have Batman Forever, which actually is my least favorite of the quadrilogy, but still a fun movie. And I think the main issue a lot of people have with this is, firstly, Burton is no longer part of the picture. Now you have Schumacher. I don't totally know why, but yeah, basically Burton's gone. Now you got Schumacher, who has a very different vision for Batman, right? And I love Schumacher, and I love what he was trying to do with this movie. And anyone who loves this movie agrees that this movie could be so much better if they released a director's cut, where Schumacher's vision and the arcs he wanted to tease in this theatrical version would be given full scope. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's such a beautiful pipe dream that we can't ignore it. Like, we have these themes of Batman taking on a protege, being Robin, and Robin, kind of like, exactly like Batman, he has two parents, he has a whole family, in fact, that are killed in an act of just blind chaos, being Two-Face, and Robin wants to get revenge. He wants to be vengeance, right? And then you have Batman trying to let him know this isn't the way, it's just going to eat you up more and more as you go. And they do tackle that in this movie, but imagine if they went a little bit further, they went a little bit deeper into Batman himself as a character. That would have been great. And as for, no disrespect to Val Kilmer, who passed away recently, I could not buy him completely as Batman. Actually, I think his Batman was pretty good, but his Bruce Wayne just felt so dry. He lacked the little idiosyncratic mannerisms of Michael Keaton, where, you know, Michael Keaton was distinctly awkward, whereas Val Kilmer, he just felt closed off and kind of dull. And if you got a counter argument, please let me know in the comments. I'd like to see your perspective on that, because I really do want to understand this Batman more. But again, maybe if you got a director's cut, we'd see a lot more of that. The last thing I would say here is the two core villains being Two-Face and Riddler. I never got them. They're both performed well. They're more Adam Westy, which is fun. But in terms of how they're looped into the narrative here, I never fully understood what their end game was. Like, Riddler, he just wants to, send out those little machines to all the TVs and get everyone's knowledge and become the smartest guy there is, which, again, is very campy, so that fits. I suppose that works. But as for Two-Face, I have no idea what he's trying to do. I guess he just wants to kill people, and that's kind of it. And then Riddler, because he has that intellect, he gives him an outlet through which to do that, so it's kind of a brains and brawn situation. But yeah, I just never fully understood it. And then you have Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase, and she's definitely one of the most interesting love interests for Batman, so I'm kind of indifferent, but she is interesting to watch, and she acts very well here. So this movie, again, it's my least favorite of these movies, but I would not by no means say it's bad or anything. It's just every time I watch it, I'm like, oh god, the potential for it to be amazing. And I know it's in there somewhere. So that being said, I'm going to give it Shrug Repellent. I definitely think Superman and the Mole Man is a tighter story. And Superman 4 just makes me laugh so much harder than Forever could ever do to me. So I would actually put this above 66 Batman and Superman 2, because again, we got a director's cut of 2, but we don't have the director's cut of Forever. So that lines up just right for me. You guys who have known my content for a while know exactly where this is going. Batman and Robin is S tier. This is my favorite Batman movie. And here's a hot take I have not been brave enough to say until now. George Clooney is my favorite Batman. Not the best Batman. Not objectively, he's not the best Batman there is. That would be Keaton. Clooney is my favorite Batman, and here's why. I was actually thinking a little earlier today about another movie that Clooney is in called Tomorrowland. This was another huge bomb in his catalog. It was a Disney movie, came out in like the mid-2010s. I went to the theater with my dad. There was like 5 other people there. No one was there. But it was still kind of a fun little movie. If you have Disney Plus, or I think it was on Hulu for a time, then feel free to check it out. Just an easy, harmless movie. But I realized George Clooney was kind of playing a similar character in Tomorrowland that he was in Batman, and that's why I love his interpretation. And again, when he was playing Batman, he didn't want to be Batman. They just needed a Hollywood superstar to fill in the shoes of Kilmer and Keaton, because neither of them wanted anything to do with his franchise anymore, so they kind of shoehorned him in there. I get that. He didn't want to be Batman. But on accident, he created a wholly new interpretation of the character that I love. He is a character who is just, similarly to Tomorrowland, he's embroiled in this world he just knows everything about, and he's just tired of it. He's bored, he's sour, and he gives off this vibe of like, well, I hate this, but you know what? I gotta do what I gotta do. There's another wacky-ass villain here who has these stupid little, things about him. You got a guy who loves ice, you got a lady who loves plants, whatever, I'll take care of them, fine. But then what makes him more interesting is the characters that he's working off against, who are on his side, being Robin, Alfred, and then eventually Batgirl. And you start to see him you open up a little bit in that, like, going, it's not just about me being bored and being sick of this, it's about me passing on the mantle and working as a team. And that is going to give my position as the guardian of Gotham more credibility, if I'm able to pass on the torch. This is the first time you really see a Bat family, on a high budget level. I mean, last time was, I guess, Batman 66, but it was just Batman and Robin already established, right? Here you still see the relationship building, you see them constantly at odds with each other, and then Batman kind of just at a certain point just welcomes him back. He's like, all right, sure, we got another third here, that'll help us out, and then they go on to save the day together. But yeah, I really do love George Clooney's Batman, and that's really the only thing that I wanted to add, aside from all the other things I've said about this movie in the past. But I sincerely love this movie unironically. I think it's very funny. I love the humor. I love the aesthetics. It's so different and wild and interesting. I think the characters are perfectly over the top, but still have a level of depth to them, especially Arnold's Mr. Freeze. I think the great thing about Freeze is that he is just, again, this plays off the animated series I've never watched, because I just can't find it. It's not my fault. It's paywall everywhere. But the thing about Freeze is he just wants to save his wife. He's not a bad person. He just wants to be sure one person is okay. He's kind of the hero of his own story when you think about it. But then Ivy fakes his wife's death in order to push him over the edge and bring the worst out of him. And he almost does it. And then Batman defeats him with the help of his 2 buddies, and then Freeze realizes how far he's gone, how far he fell. But then Clooney's Batman does something that none of the other Batmen do, where he actually manages to save the villain. Like, Keaton's Batman came close with Catwoman, but she ultimately said, like, you know what? Screw that. This world's too messed up. There's not a chance for me. But Freeze is actually able to come back around. Batman says, hey, firstly, your wife's alive. Secondly, so is the doctor inside of you. He's still alive too. And there are people who still need your help. You're gonna have to go to jail, sure, but you can still help people despite all that you've done. It's a story of redemption, and we don't really see that with Batman. That's more a Superman sort of thing, but to see that level of maturity in the Batman character, we don't see that much at all in cinema, in the more mainstream iterations of the character. So I really love that. And I'm not going to go much further into this movie. I think I did a 1 hour and 20 minute audio essay on my original channel that's so dated, but I goddamn love that movie. But Superman 78 is objectively a better movie in almost every aspect, but, I don't know. I love them both for very different reasons, but both of these movies are seminal to me. I'd never peg them to the A tier at all. I think they're both narratively sound, aesthetically great. The soundtracks are amazing. I even talk about the Goldenthal soundtrack in the Schumacher movies. That's got its own two legs, and people never talk about it. These two movies are fantastic. And with that, that kind of concludes a certain half of this list, and that's it for that century. And then that takes us into the new millennium, where I'm not going to have as much to say on these, so it's going to prattle along a little faster. Oh, and Batman and Robin was, I'm not going to say the dates on everything, I'll probably forget, but that was 1997, Forever was 95, so pretty quick succession within that quadrilogy, and then pretty big hiatus for both Superman and Batman, taking us into the 2000s, the new millennium, and that kicks off with Batman Begins, the Nolan trilogy. I'm not going to have a lot to say about the Nolanverse, because I just don't like it. It's not my thing. Again, it's got good elements in it. There are some really spectacularly done performances, but if I'm ever going to watch Batman, it's never going to voluntarily be the Nolan stuff, unless I have a friend who's like, hey, you want to watch Dark Knight with me? And I'm like, all right, sure. That's never happened, so whatever. Basically, I'll talk about all these three movies with a few pointers here. Nolan has never been my style, and really for two core reasons, I'd say. Again, he's a good director, he has really good ideas and narratives, but the first thing is whenever he does a movie, he always feels the need to tell things out of order. It's never linear, right? It's always flashback, then reality. Then we go flashback a little later on. Then we're like so deep into the present again, but like 5 months later, it's too confusing. And I'm like, why not just play it straight? I think it's overindulgent to chop up a movie and then swap up all the pieces to make it seem complex. I think that's an overrated method of storytelling. There are some instances where it does work, like when he did the movie Memento. I've only seen that once. It worked really well there, but that was because we were dealing with a guy with memory loss, so that made sense. But for Batman, just play it in a straight line and that's fine. Like, a few flashbacks to give us some context is alright, but these movies just go so ham on it that I just can't enjoy it because I keep getting confused. Oppenheimer was another culprit of that. Great movie, but because of the way that it was divvied up, I just couldn't follow it, I couldn't enjoy it. Maybe that's just a me brain thing, but I just don't like his directing style at all. And second, his writing. His writing is very good. It's very calculated, it's very in tune with the themes that he's trying to put across. But I have an issue with that on a character perspective, because every single character in these movies talk like they're a philosopher. And this is coming from someone who has a philosophy degree, right? I majored in philosophy, and I graduated in, was it 2021? Wow, my god. I'm getting old. I can feel it in my bones. But like, the thing about philosophy is, it's kind of like Syndrome from Incredibles, right? If everybody's super, nobody will be. If every single person is talking on the same intellectual level, it's not a very interesting movie. What makes movies interesting is that characters have different levels of wisdom and intellect that they can share with people who don't quite know as much as them. But with these movies, it feels like everyone's on the exact same page. They already know how everything's gonna go. And as a result of that, I feel like since they're all talking the same way, they all kind of just agree with each other. There's no stakes. Like, even when Joker or Ra's al Ghul, they're talking about their mad scheme, the hero's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, I get that, I'm still gonna have to beat you, but I see your reasoning. See, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's because I haven't seen these in a while, or the few times I have seen them, I just have vehemently not enjoyed them. I couldn't say hate them. Like, here's the thing, like, I'm glad these movies exist, don't get me wrong, because other people see something in these films that I just don't. Or maybe I am seeing those positive qualities, but they just don't work for me. I don't know, it's an equation that I'll never solve, but I have so little enjoyment derived from these films, and if you're not meant to enjoy them, then I definitely don't feel satisfied watching these movies. So anyways, let's buzz through them. We're gonna have two little interruptions in there, but yeah, Batman Begins, that was 2005, so I was in kindergarten, so of course I didn't watch it for a while there, but Batman Begins is actually my least favorite of the three. I think this is the most subject to Nolan's choppy directing style. Interesting concepts with like Ra's al Ghul and that origin story, which was deep burned into the comics. So it's nice that we get it here. And again, the acting's really good. The writing's excellent, but again, it's just too thick. It's too saturated. But I would never watch this for entertainment, for amusement, to study it. Only if somebody else would want to watch it with me. But I wouldn't give it Phantom Zone, because I know it's not bad. I'd give it... I'm struggling here, because Shrek Repellent Backstray is more like just like a kind of accept it. But Granny's Peach Tea is like, I'm watching it, but I'm like definitely not enjoying it at all. Like, I actually just don't like it. I would put this... I can't recall a moment in this movie that I enjoy. At least Superman 3 has that moment of like bad guy Superman, and we have Christopher Reeve, who's always a joy to watch. So I'm actually going to put Batman Begins below Superman 3 and Granny's Peach Tea tier. If you disagree with that, I believe there's credibility to what you think, and let me know what you say in the comments, respectfully, right? This is a subjective list, not objective by any means, alright? Anyways, now we get kind of a break in the Batman trilogy here, the Dark Knight trilogy rather, with 2 Superman movies, and that is Superman Returns to start us off, same year as the Donner cut of Superman 2, and both of them being in 2006, year after Begins. So, Returns, it's a tricky one, because I appreciate what this movie was trying to do. I actually just saw some behind-the-scenes stuff about it, and it seemed like it was just made by people who were fans of the Christopher Reeve era of Superman movies, and they wanted to make a spiritual successor to that. So, on that alone, I cut this movie some slack. It wanted to try something that was just simply impossible. Brandon Routh, I believe, he is a very good candidate for Superman, but the issue is he is trying to... He wasn't asked to be Superman, he was asked to be Christopher Reeve. And that's a Herculean task. No one can do that. It's not possible. So every time he tries being Christopher Reeve, you can't help but be like, he's like Reeve, but a little less. And that's not Routh's fault. That was just a task he was given, and he did his damn best. It just didn't quite pan out. Lois is a piece of cardboard here. None of that edge or eccentricity that Kidder had. There's no way these two are the same person. They were awful. And then this actress just did not get there, totally dry. And then you have Lex Luthor. Kevin Spacey sucks, but he did a pretty okay job at playing a version of Gene Hackman, I thought. But again, anytime I see Kevin Spacey in anything, I'm like, ugh, he's there though, so that does, in retrospect, hurt this movie. It's not the fault of the movie itself. No one knew about the crap I'm not going to discuss here at the time this movie was made, so it wouldn't be fair to judge this movie based on that, so that doesn't count. He did do a good performance before shit hit the fan for him. And I think the best part of this movie was the set pieces. Again, we were talking about the CGI. The CGI did not age well, but you get to see Superman doing some really big, wide-scale stuff, being like the plane, lifting up that island, and stuff like that. So there were some really cool visual ideas in there. But narratively, it was kind of bland, bit off more than it could chew. I didn't feel any chemistry between Clark and Lois, which is such a vital component of the first 4 movies that came before it. Some movies did better than others, but at least 78 did it perfectly. So yeah, this one, I'd give it a shark repellent bat spray. I appreciate what it was trying to do. I would put this below Superman 2 theatrical and above Batman 66. I think I'm comfortable there. Then we get to the Donner cut of 2. I've kind of already talked about everything here. I love everything in this movie more than the theatrical cut, except for the ending where he rewinds time. I get it thematically. He revealed his powers to Lois and all of that, and then he saw all the consequences. He's like, the heroic thing to do is to make her and the whole world forget any of this ever happened. But this is problematic for us as the viewer, because firstly, we already saw him rewind time the exact same way in the first movie, and second, just narratively, it's like that cliche of it was all a dream, nothing ever happened, right? And us as the viewer, it kind of sucks. So that does stink, but everything before that is pretty damn good, aside from some pacing issues. The Kryptonians are a ton of fun. Terrence Stamp is delightfully bombastic. Shame that we lost Hackman and Stamp in the same year. Weird how that happened. Just coincidence, but still odd. But yeah, I would put this certainly higher than 2 by proxy, right? I would put it... Superman 4 makes me laugh so much. I would put this, I'd say, above Forever. Batman Forever. That works for me. I wouldn't quite put this in the Vengeance tier, because it's not something that I would put in for myself. I'm just not a huge fan of Superman 2. I would rather just watch Superman 1 and I'm good, right? And then move on to something else. But nothing wrong with Superman 2 overall, but the fact that we have 2 cuts makes it a little difficult to rank them. But anyways, moving on. Now we're back to Dark Knight. Speaking of Dark Knight, well, this is how the trilogy is named. It's named after this middle entry. This is considered to be, made by some, the best comic book movie ever made. I could never say that, simply because it doesn't feel like a comic book thing, right? Because it has Christopher Nolan's grounded, grim aesthetic, which again is for a lot of other people great, but it's just not for me. It just doesn't feel like a comic book movie at all. It feels like a detective story, which is great, but here's another critique of this trilogy, where, like, with all the other Batman movies and properties, depending on whether you prefer it or not, whether you prefer bubbly Schumacher or West era, or you prefer Tim Burton, like grounded stuff, or maybe even Matt Reeves, who we'll talk about later. But for Nolan, I feel like it has no aesthetic liberty. It doesn't have that stylization that made the other movies at least interesting to look at. Here, everything is just hard to see, dark shadows. I get it, it's the point. But aesthetically, there's just nothing interesting for me to look at. Nothing interesting for me to look at. I don't like the Batman suit. No disrespect to Heath Ledger, who did do a really good performance. I didn't care about his look at all. Visually, it's very unappealing to me. And the score is very redundant. No disrespect to Zimmer, but I don't like the score for the Nolan movies. But it is better than Begins, for sure. And I do respect it. It did do some really great stuff narratively, especially with Two-Face. Actually, Two-Face was my favorite part of this movie. I love this idea of a character who starts out on good terms with the heroes, and then, as he says, you die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, and he embodies that exact philosophy. But it would have been interesting to see him live on into the third installment, and to see him, like, is he going to keep being a villain? Maybe he'll find a way to redeem himself, maybe Batman can help. But so that was sort of this little wink of a silver lining. I'm like, oh man, where could that have gone if things played out differently? So that was nice. But yeah, other than that, Joker was base, very good interpretation, just not my personal thing. Again, I prefer more camp, which is totally allowed, I think. And, oh yeah, by the way, I don't like Bale. I don't like Bale in anything I've seen him in as adult Bale. The only time I've ever liked Christian Bale was in Empire of the Sun, and he was like a child, right? But ever since then, he grew up to be an adult actor. I haven't liked anything that he's been in. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's known to have an abrasive personality and it kind of seeps into whoever he's acting as. I can't get past his ego in anything that I watch. And again, probably just a me thing, but I just don't like this Batman actor. He's probably my least favorite of all of them. So that being said, I'm still going to give this movie some credit. I'm going to put it above Batman 66, because again, it's kind of just rinse and repeat of the show. I'll put it above Returns. I wouldn't put it higher than... Oh, well, that's original too, right? I wouldn't put it higher than Forever. So I'll put it between theatrical Superman 2 and Batman Forever. And, alright, screw the years. Everything's pretty steady rollout from here on out. But I'll have these as reference if I need them. Dark Knight Rises, very controversial hot take, as if I didn't have enough of them already in this video. This is actually my favorite of the Dark Knight movies, because it does lean into the camp and the whimsy a little bit more. I love Tom Hardy's Bane so goddamn much. He's awesome. He's my favorite part of the entire Nolan trilogy. I love that he has that weird-ass voice that makes him more campy, but still he is a distinct threat to Batman, but not just him, but the entire city at large. He manages to shift the entire city into an anarchistic state. No government, the criminals are leading everything. That is so fun, and I love that. See, I felt like in the other two movies, they were kind of just biding for time for this to happen. So as a result of that, I'd rather let's just cut to the chase. Let's just get to the anarchy here. And then the other two movies are just kind of just meandering, wading through all these philosophical ideas that we don't really always see payoff on. This is the first movie in this trilogy, and for me the only one where we see the consequence, right? Like Joker, like allows some people to die. Same with Ra's al Ghul. I just never felt it. I never felt the weight. Bane, I felt it. Right? He was imposing, charismatic, and consequential, and he is really what made me enjoy this movie more. And simply just on the fact that there's at least one character in this movie that I like more than all the other characters we've seen before. By proxy, I like this movie more than Begins and Dark Knight. Just mathematically, that's how it goes. Although narratively, it does have weak points. Like, the Talia al Ghul thing was bad. Very bad, especially with how it played into Bane. Catwoman was cool, but didn't really amount to much, and I feel like maybe if she was introduced in Dark Knight, then we'd see a little bit more of an evolution into Rises. Can't we just get a cinematic Catwoman who lasts more than one movie? I think that would be very important to Batman, but, you know, whatever. But, yeah, this movie, absolutely higher than Dark Knight. I would actually put this in Vengeance tier. I think I would put that in Vengeance tier. But below, well, again, that Bane is so good. Yeah, you know, I'd be willing to put this above Mole Men for me, because while I think Mole Men has a more tight story, I think with Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, there's more of that rush, right? That feeling of impending doom that is so palpable throughout the majority of this movie, and then you got one single character who embodies that. I might actually rewatch this on my own after this video, because I do like this movie, but I could totally skip the two that came before. Again, no disrespect to the actors and performances there, but this movie is so great. At least that aura of it, not the whole movie. There are issues, sure, but I love certain aspects of it so much, I'm willing to overlook the problems. And that takes us into the DCEU, and there's going to be a lot of standalone movies, a lot of team-up movies, and also movies where they just have a cameo. There's going to be no other way that I could talk about them outside of this list, so I added them in. So we have Man of Steel. Not my favorite Superman movie, not my favorite Superman actor, but it's a very good cohesive vision of Superman. This is what you call a deconstructive movie, right? It takes what we knew about Superman before, being the guy who's always morally upright. He's going to be able to do everything, solve all the problems. But in this movie, he can't. He's worried, he's concerned. He can't do everything. He can't turn back time every time something goes wrong. And most important thing about this movie, which I love about this movie and a lot of people don't like, is that he has these morals and he wants to uphold them. He wants to preserve humanity. He doesn't want to kill. But at the end of the day, he has no choice. He has to. When Zod is about to laser down this family, who again is just a family, insignificant to Superman, but he loves people so much, he would rather destroy his own ethics as opposed to seeing more people die. But then again, it's at a conundrum of, like, you just wrecked like a whole bunch of towers. You probably had a very high body count regardless. So again, the way that the movie is pieced together is off, but I understand and appreciate what it's trying to do, in lieu of it creating a lot of plot holes along the way, right? It was just kind of a charge forward path to get to that message, and I think that's the greatest weak point. But I do like what this movie was attempting, and it was a really good start to what wound up being kind of a lukewarm cinematic universe, which overall I don't really partake in all that much. But overall, I do think it is a good movie. It's just not my favorite of them all. I would put this... It's not like a super favorite of mine. I would put this, I'd say, above Mole Men, but behind Rises? Yeah, I'd feel comfortable with that. Well, I'm sorry. The thing is, I love George Reeves and Christopher Reeve so much. Actually, I'm going to make a radically different decision here. I'm going to drop this beneath Superman 4, because Superman 4 makes me laugh so hard. Do I prefer a comedy or do I prefer like a dark introspective film? I'm probably going to go with a comedy in this case, at least for this basis, these two specific movies. Other movies might be different. Anyway, I'll shut up. Let's keep going. Now we have Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is kind of a big deal, and kind of a big year for hero comic movies. That was 2016. Yeah, because we actually got two movies in that year that were pretty big. Batman vs Superman is definitely weaker than Man of Steel. I think the biggest issue straight away is that Batfleck did not get his own standalone movie. I mean, people still complain about that to this day. I'd want to see his origin. I'd want to see him growing up. I'd want to see him developing his own moral compass, especially since he does not have the infamous no-kill rule. He will destroy people if they're on the wrong side of the law. He won't even ask them any questions. He'll just take them out. And that makes him really fun and scary. He's the scariest Batman for sure. But I want to know more about how he got that way, right? And then this movie pulls so many fantastical liberties with, like, you get the nightmare sequence and the Flash shows up. This movie suffers from something that I'm not sure if I origined this term. I've said this before, I think on this channel, I think in my writing group. I use a term called sequelitis. It's where a movie gears itself towards preparing for potential sequels that don't exist yet, but as a result of that, because it has all these extra little notes and unfinished plot points, it shoots itself in the foot, and that it can no longer just be a standalone. Man of Steel is not a bad standalone, right? Because there aren't a whole ton of cameos, there aren't a whole ton of loose ends. It's solid, it works just as it is, and we're fine. Batman vs. Superman pulls in so many outside elements to blow itself up. And I think there was that deleted, I don't know, I don't remember if it was a deleted credit sequence or was that for Justice League? I don't know, it all kind of melts together to me. But an example of sequelitis is where we have that post-credit scene where Lex is on a boat and then Deathstroke shows up and you never see Deathstroke again, right? There's so much bad sequelitis in these movies. Sometimes it can be good, and it does get payoff in these movies and other franchises, but DCEU is infamous for having very bad sequelitis, and Batman vs. Superman is an exemplary version of that. As for the movie itself and its own merits, the plot's very messy, the movie's very stretched out. I heard that there's a director's cut, but just adds a few little scenes, but doesn't change the plot enough that I would even give it the time of day. There are moments, that's the thing. Snyder does movies that have very interesting ideas in them, very great moments, but they just don't quite tie together completely. I love this movie as far as Superman versus Batman are concerned, where Batman has a suit specifically for the occasion where he believes Superman's getting out of hand, and they duke it out. That's a great moment. But then the Martha thing happens, right? And then I think where this movie starts to really roll downhill is when Wonder Woman shows up. A really great portrayal from Gal Gadot, and I think maybe her only good acting performance ever. And then Chungus Doomsday, as I call him, because that's not Doomsday, it's a CGI blob and an ugly character design. And then you get the lightning and everything, and it's just gross. It's an ugly looking movie from that point onwards. So yeah, I'd rather skip this movie. I'd rather, go on YouTube, look up the good clips, and I'm good. I don't know if I'd ever want to watch this in full, unless it's background. So, I would say it's really teetering the line between D tier and C tier for me. Alright, I think I'd put it above 66. I'd put it above Returns. I wouldn't put it above Theatrical Superman 2. Okay, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of C's here. There's gonna be a lot that I love and a lot that I just don't like. Alright, and on the same year, we got the Suicide Squad 2016. The reason why this is here is because Batman did make a cameo. So, here we are. I might miss a few cameos in other movies, but doing the best I can. Now this movie, there's gonna be no other chance for me to talk about this, so let me, thick this one out. This is not a great movie. It's in fact probably a very bad movie, but this was a really interesting time for me as a kid, just an angsty teen in high school. Nothing was going right for me. I hated everyone. And then we learned there's going to be, technically the first super villain movie, right? And then you had the trailers, the music, all the neon colors, and it was just an exciting time. I saw this with one of the last friends I had from my grade school days who I no longer speak to, unfortunately. Not because we fell out of we fell out of favor or anything. We just led different lives and we faded away, unfortunately. We went to the theater together, which was one of the only times I went to do something with just a friend during that time in my life. And the movie had some weird stuff going on in it, directing wise, narrative wise, acting wise. But I left that theater and I'm like, that was so fun. I don't hate this movie. I know it's got issues, but I think I do think it is a fun movie to watch. It's a so bad it's good sort of thing, where you have Amanda Waller spending like a freaking 30-minute span just like rattling off, here's a villain, here's their backstory, here's how they got this way, here's a person they're connected to, here's a weakness you can exploit if they get out of hand, right? It's just delightfully silly, and honestly, I didn't have any huge expectations going in. I didn't expect it to be very deep or introspective. I just wanted it to be a good time, and god damn it, it was. And I will say on a brief note, Batman did not cameo in that movie, but in the 2021 Suicide Squad, right? That movie's superior in every way, but that's another conversation. But for its time and for where I was during that period, this was a fun and goofy-ass movie. I enjoyed it. I'm going to put this in Vengeance tier. Nostalgia can only get it so far, right? And I'd probably... I'd put this below... I put it below Mole Men, because Mole Men has a much stronger story. But I put it above Quest for Peace, because Suicide Squad has something that Quest for Peace does not for me, and that is just, like, rose-tinted glasses nostalgia. I know I got the rose-tinted glasses, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. If that allows you to enjoy something more, no matter how bad it is, what's wrong with that? Then you have something else to watch other people won't watch. So, hell with it. Okay, that takes us into the only animated movie here. That is Lego Batman, and that came out in 2017, so that's when I graduated from high school. I didn't see this movie for a while. I think I saw this later on in college. I think it was on streaming. And I've seen this movie 2 or 3 times, and I do like it, actually. I'd wish I'd actually watched it a few more times. But this movie's really interesting in that it ties together everything that we know about Batman, at least up to this point, except for all the movies that come later on, where it ties together West, it ties together Keaton, it ties together Clooney, it brings together the entire Batman legacy into one package. And this is like a Batman who has endured all of these stories up to this point, and where is his mental state here. And again, I don't remember this movie super well, but I think one of the things that I love about this is what I love from Batman and Robin, and that is the family aspect, right? It's a story about Batman just getting over his own ego in order to let people in, kind of like Shrek. But in this case, it's a little bit more focused. It's more focused on Batman and Robin, right? And also his relationship with the Joker, kind of like, well, they use the scene from Jerry Maguire where he says, you need me, you complete me, or whatever. And it kind of loops in Dark Knight in a strange way, where Heath Ledger's Joker says, you can't kill me, I can't kill you, we're just going to keep duking it out. And of course, that didn't happen because Heath Ledger unfortunately passed, but you get the idea. It's the idea that Batman is just always going to be through this loop of saving the day, and he's going to slowly get bored of it, like the George Clooney Batman I talked about. But ultimately, what gives his life credibility is when he's able to open himself up to others and create a team. And that's going to allow that cycle to change. So I do think that is a beautiful little thing there. And even the villain, too. The fact that he's like, all right, villains, go ahead, do whatever you want, we'll get you later. And it's a nice little package. And I'm going to actually put this pretty high, even though I haven't seen it very often. I'm sure there's a few plot beats I'm missing, but it's such a delight. It's beautiful, and it's technically a spin-off of the Lego Movie, which is also very good in its own way. I'd give this a solid B tier. I don't remember it as well, but I would say it's better than Quest for Peace, but Suicide Squad, again, nostalgia, so I would put that right there. If I saw it again, it would probably move a little higher. Might even move to Locomotive, I'm not sure. If the first Justice League is next, what year did this come out again? I don't actually remember. This is for my own knowledge. Ooh, I can lose a sticky note. Great. Okay, let's move on to this one. 2017. Oh, same year as Lego Batman. What do you know? I've not seen this movie. for a few reasons. Firstly, we have Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is the definitive version, and it's so radically different that this version just doesn't matter, right? And secondly, the way this movie was created was pretty disgusting, where Zack Snyder lost his daughter during the production of this movie, and he had to take a very understandable hiatus. So they shoved in another director, being Joss Whedon, who I think did all the Marvel stuff, which I don't like. And then as a result of that, this movie became just this ugly, hideous Frankenstein of a thing, which, from what I've seen, has like no redeeming qualities at all. Anything that was good about it got watered down or cut completely and had to be rectified later in the Snyder cut. So, ethically, this is just a bad movie that should have never ever existed. This is getting Phantom Zone. Absolutely Phantom Zone. At least all these movies, they had some kind of mission. This movie was created in the name of money. And that's really where I draw the line on certain things. Like, even if the actors are trying their best, even if there was good music, even if there were some good set pieces, if a movie was created out of just to generate money only, or out of spite, then I will shoot it down to Phantom Zone. Like, even Superman 4 Quest for Peace, there is footage of Christopher Reeve saying he wanted this movie to be very good. He wanted it to be a commentary on the Cold War, on the arms race and stuff like that. He wanted this movie to be pure. He wanted it to be sound, but it was just out of his control. I don't think there was anything he could do to save that. But yeah, I definitely prefer Superman 4 over Joss Whedon Justice League any day, solely on ethics alone. At least 4 was trying to do something meaningful. This movie's an empty shell. It's a carcass of something that was murdered, and they forced it in front of everyone. It's like, hey, check it out! And then everyone's like, oh god, what is that? Put it away. So, yeah. And then also CGI Henry Cavill mustache. Then we get into Joker. Now, I'm not including this just because Joker is tied to the Batman mythos, but also Batman is kind of in this movie, but he's a young Bruce Wayne. So he's in here too. So I do have a chance to talk about Joker. I have not seen Folie à Deux, so I can't speak to that. I don't know if Batman cameos. I doubt he does. But this movie came out. It was a huge splash. I think it's the highest grossing R-rated movie to this day, so that's really interesting to me. And this movie is very controversial within the circle of people who know comics, who know Batman. And for me, the way I like to perceive this is not our usual Joker. This is not our usual, like Earth, like core Earth version of these stories, right? This is its own unique, isolated, separate tangent. And I'm totally fine with that. That's what allows us to tell new versions of this source material and new artistic renderings. This movie I thought was really well done. I really liked it. I really liked the idea of mental illness and how people perceive it. And a lot of people shoot this movie down for that reason, because it uses mental illness in the villain. And I mentioned before, I'm an autistic guy. How do I perceive this movie, right? I think this is another very big hot take that could land me in boiling water with certain audiences. I think we only achieve equality when the minorities can also become the villains, right? Because I see a really big problem in media, in storytelling, where people with disabilities, or like physical or mental, they're perceived as people who can never do wrong. They're angels. They're beautiful. They're always going to be the heroes, right? But that's not true. People who have disabilities in certain ways, they can also get fed up. They can get mad. They can get angry. They can see problems out there and go out of their way to try and rectify them. And yeah, be heroes, but maybe do it through, unsound means. Maybe they're just not up to snuff to do it properly, like any neurotypical person would be, or any able-bodied person would be. I think it's important that we have characters who are not neurotypical, or whatever, and they don't go about their mission the right way. I think that's an important story to tell. And this is an interesting story in that we're rooting for Fleck, but also not. Because, we feel bad for the guy. We see how bad his life is, like between learning revelations about his mother, through just trying to deal with what he has to deal with every day being his own disability. I forget what it's called, but that inability to stop laughing and he can't help it. And then he's immediately alienated by a city, which is otherwise already very isolative towards its citizens. And ultimately, he just goes down this horrible path. Even though he sees the problems, he's like, people should be doing things differently. People should be better off. They should be kinder to each other. We should be allowed to laugh and not be mocked for it. And we agree with that. But then he starts, like, I should create a persona. I should murder people in order to get this across. I'm like, no, don't do that. This is wrong. And it's a tragic piece. And then again, he says, like, is this a comedy or is this a tragedy? And it's a film like filled with irony and so many interesting thematic elements, where we end with like the classy 50s music and he just killed a person and he's the hero of his own story, but we're watching this as a viewer is like, man, you could have been so much more than this if you weren't pushed to this depth, and that wasn't even your fault. It was just all you knew and you had to act on that, right? And you still blame him, and he's still the villain ultimately. But you're like, what could have been, right? If this world treated him better. Maybe he could have been his own type of Batman. Maybe he could have been a good guy. We don't know. But I think it's just an interesting movie to dissect. Think about the what ifs. Because it took away a lot of what we knew of this character, it gave us a whole new one. I think that's really interesting. And also, it's just very well produced. I'm going to give this a low locomotive, honestly. It's a great movie. I love it a lot. Again, I see it as a separate entity from everything else that we have here, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very well-constructed movie that surrenders what we already knew about the Joker and Batman in order to create something totally new. And I think that's totally fine. So, I know, that was a very controversial analysis of that film, but that's how I feel. And maybe if I gave myself more time, I could be more thorough about it, but I do think it is a good idea to create supervillains who have disabilities, just as long as their backstories are well informed and it makes sense how they got that way. Like, a certain iteration of Black Manta was autistic, and, he loved cold things like water, and he's like, we should live in a colder world where everyone could be more happy, and that's interesting to me. I don't know, but I do think there is some untapped potential that maybe we'll see more of in the future, but done the right way, like in Joker. It worked here. I loved this movie a lot. So now, here's another really heavy hitter. This is Zack Snyder's Justice League. After he took his time, there were a whole bunch of fans who were rallying for him to release the Snyder Cut. He got his resources together, the actors came back, they filled in the pockets, and they basically morphed what was originally a 2-hour monstrosity into a 4-hour epic. Very well put together movie, but it's just not my thing. It's too long, it's too dragged out, there are too many characters. And granted, the reason why the movie is so huge is so they can give all the characters enough attention. But for me, it's just not my style. The Zack Snyder aesthetic just isn't really my thing. But I'm just very happy that the people who wanted this movie, including Zack Snyder himself, got this. This movie is a dream. It should not have existed. The fact that it's around, I think, is a big win. I'm glad that this exists and beat out studio demands. I don't think this ever went to theaters. I think it went straight to streaming, but that's unfortunate. I think it's okay to release really long movies, but you just got to bring back the intermission, right? They did that a lot in the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, like Sound of Music. This is such a weird tangent, but we're like, they knew the movies were huge or Heraclean for the time and now. So they're like halfway through the movie, intermission, go ahead, take a pee, get some popcorn, whatever. I feel like they should really bring that back, and we can get longer, more interesting movies with a stronger plot, right? Instead of trying to force so much into 2.5 hours, right? I have no more to say on this. I would give this Shark Repellent Bat Spray. I'd watch it, but I don't think I'd enjoy it as much as others would. Higher than Batman 66, but Superman Returns is much easier to watch. Yeah, no. I'd put Batman 66 over it because it's got the funny moments and stuff like that. It's more enjoyable for me to watch. But I wouldn't say that Justice League is by any means bad. It's just absolutely not my thing, but it is very good. So I'll give it some respect. Oh god. Black Adam. This is the beginning of the end for the DCEU, and this is one of those first bombs that was a sign that it's over, turn in your hats, time to leave the room, it's not gonna happen. But this is a Superman movie because he cameos at the very end, and it results in absolutely nothing, so I'm gonna talk about it here. This is a movie where there are literally only two things I like about it, and every time I watch it, the rest of the movie looks worse. The two things I like about this movie are firstly the score. The music is really awesome. I forget who did it, but the soundtrack is seriously cool. It's like a combination of like Mummy and almost like WWE anthem sort of thing. I'm not even a wrestling guy, but it makes sense because this is The Rock's vanity project. But the music is really awesome. Definitely check it out if you want. And the second thing is Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate is my favorite superhero, I think, ever. He's my favorite character. I just wish he would get his own isolated standalone movie. Maybe we'll see that in the new DCU with James Gunn. If he taps into Justice Society of America, I would love to see that. Such a magnetic performance. I think everything they did with Dr. Fate was beautiful. His acting, his powers. The CGI was a little clammy at times, but it was fine. It wasn't that bad. But I really loved everything they did with Dr. Fate. They had to nerf his powers, naturally. They have to do that with all characters in these movies, but that's totally fine. I just love the idea of this character who is so beyond his years that he's just achieved the mentor role. He's trying to help others along before he can allow himself to finally rest. I think that's really cool. He's almost like the Yoda of the superhero universe, and I really like that. I think it's untapped. I think that is something we can afford to do going forward in later installments within the next DC movies. The rest of this movie, though, aside from the score and Pierce Brosnan, I don't like it. The directing is very shoddy. They also tried putting pop culture music into this, which is severely out of place. Like, they play Smashing Pumpkins' Bullet with Butterfly Wings, which I love. I love that song, but it had nothing to do with anything that was going on in the scene where we're getting introduced to the city. There's no poetry to it. And then when Black Adam is like blowing up some dudes in the modern day, we're listening to Paint It Black. I'm like, yeah, because he's Black Adam. Okay. So there's just a lot of odd choices, but yeah, this is not a good movie. It's got some fun stuff in it, but overall it's a mess. I'd give this Granny's Peach Tea. This movie really has aged horribly for me the more that I've seen it, just to see Dr. Fate. But like Superman 3, just one or two elements that I do like is not enough to save the whole movie. But yeah, definitely more than Batman Begins. Yeah, I'd say more than Superman 3. Because again, Superman 3 is very boring. At least Black Adam has stuff going on, so that's fine. The Batman is great. I love this movie a lot. I hope that the sequels will be able to match it or improve on it. This is the Dark Knight that I prefer, as far as what Nolan was trying to do, right? Trying to ground Batman, bring out that more of that detective thing without getting overly introspective, and thank God, just telling it in a straight line, right? Everything that I didn't like about the Nolan movies is fixed here. And most importantly, the stylistic elements, right? It's not so grounded that it's dry and dull and boring, at least for me. Here, you get the saturated colors, you get the creative camera angles, tricks of the light, flipping the camera upside down. Just brilliant directive work. This is the best Batman movie ever made, for me, objectively. I mean, it's not my favorite, again, that still goes to Batman and Robin, that's not gonna change, I'm sorry, but The Batman is awesome, such a cool movie, great acting. You can get a little bloated here and there. I feel like you could have chopped out 20 minutes maybe, and the movie would be a little bit better pacing-wise, but the more I've watched it, the less I've minded it. I think, none of those moments are totally useless. All of them had something, but do we need those elements, right? But otherwise loaded with so many great portrayals and changing things. Like, I love this Riddler. I love his parallels with Batman, and that they're both orphans, but one was privileged and one was not. Kind of a similar theme to Batman Returns, where everyone's adopting an animal persona, and where do they go? Here we have two characters with similar origins. One uses their origins to do better, and to be sure people don't turn out like him. Then you have the Riddler, who is almost trying to make everyone else like him to show them just how bad everything is, and to have them like allow themselves to be corrupted by how awful things are, and to show just how ugly the political system is and all the secrets, but not in like this brash way, this blunt and dry way that Nolan did. I feel like here it was a lot more, again, high stakes, right? It was more of an amplification of what The Dark Knight Rises was doing with Bane, right? But now it's in the first installment, and then going forward, that's the world we're in. So I love it a lot more for it. Again, good sequelitis here, where it's well warranted, it makes sense, as long as they do a sequel, which it seems like they're doing right now. But yeah, I could go gaga about this movie for a long time. This is one of the few movies here which I say is almost entirely great across the board. I didn't know I was going to do this. I'm going to put this in super. I'm going to give this an S tier. I think it's a beautifully crafted movie. Narratively, it's excellent. All the performances are good. The score is iconic. I dig this movie so much. But I do have to put Batman and Robin and Superman 78 above it. But it's so excellent. I really do love it. I could rewatch it any day, even though it's so long, right? It's so dense with the good stuff that I can get past it being 3 hours. The more I watch it, the less it feels like it's that long. That's a sign of a great movie that always gives you just a little bit more every time you watch it. Alright, we're in the home stretch here. So first, the death of the DCEU, and then we're going to have the birth of the DCU. So we have The Flash, which is one of the most infamous bombs in recent memory. It is definitely problematic for more reasons than one. But it does do some really great things in it. And one of those things is Batman. We actually have 3 Batmen in this movie. Well, I guess technically 4 if you count the CGI universe ball thing, which we'll talk about. But I think the best thing about this movie is Michael Keaton's Batman returning, unfortunately, halfway through the damn movie. But again, this taps into what I said I liked about George Clooney's Batman so much, where you have this older, jaded Bruce Wayne who's like, oh, that was my time, not really anymore. I've kind of had it. But then this new, Justice League version 2 tags him in, and he's like, you know what? I gotta do what I gotta do. Here we go. Let me get the Batmobile. Let me get the Batwing, whatever he has in his arsenal for one last adventure. I really love everything they did with Keaton's Batman, except maybe he didn't have to die that way and so unceremoniously. At least he had one more shot. Although, still, I'm in the band camp of I would love for Michael Keaton to come back for one more movie that's a spiritual successor to the 2 Burton movies. But if this is the last thing we get of him, it's not so bad, right? The rest of the movie, though, I either don't really love or it's just absolutely awful, right? It's a long movie. I think it's 2.5 hours, so that's a lot of time to make a lot of mistakes. The last thing I did really like about this was Supergirl. Sasha Calle's Supergirl I thought was really awesome. Again, fit beautifully into that Zack Snyder, I know this isn't Zack Snyder's movie, but almost that brooding, introspective, angsty feel that we got from Man of Steel. She doesn't look like she could be Henry Cavill's cousin, but she definitely feels like his cousin, right? Kind of just disgruntled by humanity, like an interesting paradigm where Superman believes in people, where Supergirl, all she's known is bad people. And the Flash and Batman need to show her we're not all like that. And then she turns for the good, but then she gets killed. So again, it's narratively a strange movie. We gotta talk about the Flash. He's the reason why this movie exists. Then we got Ezra Miller. Again, like Kevin Spacey, it's because he's here, it makes the whole movie just a little bit difficult to watch, especially because there's 2 of them. Technically 3, actually. But the reason why you could give Superman Returns some slack is because we didn't know the things about Kevin Spacey yet. This movie came out as all the crap about Ezra Miller was being brought to light. That's why a lot of people boycotted this film. He acted well, but granted, the Flash just simply isn't my favorite character ever. But yeah, his humor wasn't my thing. It was very cringy, very MCU. I didn't care for that. But still, his core story was interesting. Again, kind of trying to play with time in order to save his mom and bring justice to at least her and his father and himself. And that's fair. It's a simple little thing. You're like, oh, just a little tweak in time to make things better for everybody. Or at least myself. And then that winds up creating a whole other parallel dimension, or at least revealing one, where it's a different Batman, we have Supergirl instead of Superman, and Zod is still around, and there's no one to stop him. So, yeah, we do see the consequences of these actions. It's playing off of the Flashpoint plotline from the animated universe and the comics, just not done quite as well, obviously. And then the most egregious thing here is the CGI, and more importantly, resurrecting old actors through really, really bad CGI. George Reeves, Adam West, Christopher Reeve. Helen Slater's still around, but they were really bad with her as well. Actually, I probably could have included that movie on this list, but it's not Superman, and I never watched it. I'd love to, though. Somebody's telling me I probably would love Supergirl. But, yeah, the visuals of this movie are definitely awful. And again, this teeters into the unethical side of things with Phantom Zone. So, that's the thing. There's a whole half of this movie that I really just don't care about. And there's the other half where I'm like, oh, there's some cool things in here, but then it's like countered off the like unethical side of things. So this movie's really tough, and it's way too damn long for what it is. I think I would put this in Granny's Peach Tea, but I put it below Black Adam simply because Dr. Fate is in Black Adam, and I love Dr. Fate so much, and his portrayal is freaking excellent. But then Superman 3 would be below because it's boring. Flash is not boring, so alright. Last but not least, we have Superman 2025. This is I think a mock-up poster that says Superman Legacy here. I think this is an older tier list. I had to add a lot of the movies in this, by the way. I like doubled the volume here. I've gone into depth on this movie, I think on 2 other occasions, so I'll be brief here. This is not a perfect movie, but the most important thing it does is bring back the spirit. Whether it comes from Cornsweet's acting, to kind of a revamp of the John Williams score, there are so many elements that just bring the beauty back, the whimsy back. This feels like the first time we're leaving that gritty, angry, angsty era of comic book cinema, which was fun and had a lot of great moments, but I wanted the cheese back. I wanted the campy back. The color was gone, right? Everything had to look so washed out and sepia, and I don't know why until this movie. And I'm so glad that it accomplished what it did. Again, it's not perfect. There are still some issues with it. There's a lot of plot points in there that aren't met up on, or they're too stretched out or too small. There is definitely a lot of sequelitis in here, but again, there's time for that to be owned up on. It's a brand new universe. We're getting Supergirl, so we'll see what happens there. This year, actually, very soon, so that'll be really cool. But yeah, overall, aside from just simply bringing back the spirit, I love this movie. It was very fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I don't think I could quite give it super, though. It's gonna be more of like a retrospect thing. It's like, where will this thing land? Oh, another thing I should mention, my cousins were around for New Year's and the holidays, and they've never seen a single superhero movie before that wasn't animated. They've never seen a live-action one. So I had the honor of choosing which superhero movies they would see for the first time. The first one I showed them was Superman 2025, because there's more action, there's more fun stuff, they fall in love with it. And then after that, I showed them Superman 78. I don't think they're ready for Batman just yet. They're very, very young. But this is a great movie that unites the generations. People who have grown up with these films for decades. People who watched all the Snyderverse stuff or Nolanverse stuff in high school or whatever. And then the damn children who were just born. And then they can get a perfect introduction. This is a great mean between extremes. I think anyone can fall in love with this movie. Or if not the movie itself, then the spirit that it's trying to bring back. If you don't like Superman 2025, then you at least go, man, the feel of the movie. What if we brought that into other IPs, into other comic book stories, new iterations? This brings back what Superman's all about, and that's hope. And I'm very glad that this movie exists, and I do love watching it. I would give it Locomotive. I would put it... Batman 89 is a big one for me. I'd put it above Batman Returns, though, so I'll put it right in between the two Burton movies. I know it's a strange placement, but yeah, Batman 89 is pretty seminal to me, but the Batman and Robin are a lot bigger of a deal. So yeah, we did it. That's my list. So we went from 1951 with Mole Men right here in Vengeance tier, up to Superman 2025 in Locomotive tier. Yeah, interesting. This actually came out with a nice little hill here. I don't know why. Whenever I do one of these tier lists, I like looking at the shape. Like, I like seeing it's smaller on the top, it gets a little bigger towards the middle, and it shrinks towards the bottom. I think that's beautiful symmetry, right? And it makes sense, right? More movies are going to be like, they're fine, they're good, alright, they stand on their own 2 feet. And there's going to be less movies that are like, super, super awesome, best of the best, and also totally, totally bad, this thing shouldn't exist, right? So, I'm pretty comfortable with this list. I don't think there's anything here that I would really change. Yeah, this is pretty much what I got. So, I was also trying to think, maybe I could do like an advanced mathematical system to decide, do I prefer Superman movies more or Batman movies more? No, I prefer Batman movies more. There's more of them, there's more different interpretations. Makes sense. But both franchises definitely have excellent all-timers and absolute stinkers. It's just interesting to see how it balances out. I think this curvature here is very telling. So, very cool. But anyways, yeah, that's it for my list. It's something I've wanted to do since I saw Superman 4 Quest for Peace. And I'm like, oh my god, I've seen basically all of them now. Let's put it all together and see where it winds up. So yeah, go in the comments, let me know how you would rank these movies. Again, there's a lot of them. You don't have to rank them all. Maybe it's your top 3 and your bottom 3, however you like to do it. If you yourself have any personal hot takes, let me know that too, because I want to hear your perspectives. And like, even if there's a movie I have at the bottom here, like Black Adam to the first Justice League, let me know why you love those movies if you love those so much. Or if there's a movie up here that you really, really dislike, then let me know that too. Except for Batman and Robin, because I already know why you dislike that movie, right? That's common knowledge now. But yeah, I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts. Just keep it respectful, you know? There's no need to bully each other or be an angry monkey on a computer. So yeah, enough said. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next, especially considering my situation. This weekend's just a little bit of a pause in New England because there's an impending super snowstorm that's going to be starting tomorrow. We're going to be in sub-zero temperatures, not even kidding. So I'm going to be holed up here. I'll probably work on a few other videos. If not on this channel, then probably on Player Display. I don't know about pod plays. I haven't touched that one in a long time. I'm not sure if I'll ever go back to that one, being that my priorities have shifted. But yeah, I'll be back with something. Not sure what yet, but I always figure something out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned a few things. Please do teach me a few things in the comments too. I would love to hear your thoughts. So thank you very much. Rock on. And we'll see you all later.
That's all there is. There isn't any more.